Are we good? I hope we're good. We should be good. Yeah, we should be good. Hello, welcome. My hope is that my mic settings are a little bit better for you guys. They're not distorting like crazy, but we'll see. Alright, so I'm going to do a tutorial-esque video. First, I'm going to do the Facebook. Doing tutorial. I'm gonna share this on my page. Oh. And then I'm gonna go to Facebook. And I'm gonna go to my page. And I'm gonna share that. Sorry. Doing the media. Because I need to. It sucks I can't seem to like do it before I stream. Seems dumb. Cool. Alright, here we go. So the technique I'm about to show you, I don't know why it took me until this long to figure it out. As far as how I was going to approach it. I mean, default clips I'd been using, default settings, I should say, I've been using for quite some time, but it didn't click until I just recently watched a video, and while they were watching it, they were talking about channel strips. And some of you that don't know, I use Ableton Reason, wow, I'm a little tired. Propellerheads Reason. There we go. I use Ableton Reason combo together, but Reason has its mimicked SSL mix channel strip, right? So each channel, you have a full channel strip of, you've got your input, you can dictate your signal path after you get your input gain, all that kind of stuff. You can have the inserts come before the dynamics, you can have the dynamics come after the EQ, so on and so forth. You can filter to dynamic sidechain, all that good stuff. Then you have the dynamics itself, which has compressor, an expander, EQ with low high pass filters, and then of course high frequency, high mids, low frequency, shelf and bell EQs, and this is kind of similar to EQ8 and all that good stuff, right? And then the insert section, which is just all your insert effects. The rotaries and the buttons just control, are like macros basically. And then you have sound effects. And at the very end, you've got your stereo width, pan, mute, solo, level. I mean, similar things you find in Ableton's. But the thing with Ableton and its mix sitting here, and the reason why I don't have it showing is because I have the mix channel so freaking high. Alright, so you get this. In my template I've got 6 settings. I don't need 8. I mean, I could use 8 if I really wanted to. It's not 100% necessary. Some of the similar things to this, right? You know, we've got, well, honestly, we just have mute, solo, a record button, which is universal, of course. And then you know, dictating ins and outs and all that stuff. But what we don't have is a lot of this channel strip signal path kind of stuff, right? So I was thinking about it and I was like, well, let's mimic this. So I'm going to kind of use this as a reference point. And I'm going to recreate a SSL channel mixer as my default audio track and MIDI track device chain, basically, right? And to hopefully make things better, let's just do this. And then I'll expand this out a little bit. That way we can reference it on the right together. And you can see what I'm doing. Oh, sweet. That worked out much more marvelously than I thought. And then this is one mix channel, and then this master compressor and effects and inserts, those are all master channels, which I'll do as well. I'll do a master channel similar aspect here as well for my template. So the first thing we see is the input gain, and we can easily just use a utility for that. Boom, done. Now granted, at the end of this you see like the width and the pan and that kind of stuff. And utility has those parameters, if you will. But we're just looking for the gain. I'm just going to say input gain. And in fact, if you have Max for Live, I believe there is a Max for Live plugin that is literally just gain. Simple gain. Boom. Done. Now, with Reason, you can go, 14, or you can subtract by 18. This one, you can get 6 dB added gain. Alright. Which is fine. We don't need too much input gain, in all honesty. It's better to reduce than to add. But it is that concept of giving it some gain. If we have utility, we can go up to 35, but yeah, I'll leave utility. Options. Especially with quiet samples, And we can even group this, right? So we can I guess I could group within a group. So let's group this. And then we can set up some macros with it too, right? So we can map the gain to macro 1. I'm actually going to drag this down to -35. And then set this to 0. Alright, so there's our input gain. Can you rename it input gain? Color it Make it nice and red so we can see everything. And then I'll rename this input effects. We can hide the chain. We don't need the chain. We can break the chain. We'll leave everything else exactly the same. Don't need to change anything. We're just looking for the gain. The next thing we can do in here with insert pre-effects and dynamics, post EQ, and all that kind of stuff, right? We can kind of set these into 3 different categories within our input effects, because we're really just dealing with dynamics, EQ, and then insert effects. So we'll probably want, in this instance, a couple of audio effect racks to add to the chain. The input gain will stay first and foremost because that's the input gain. And then we'll rename this group again. Let's just make this the dynamics. That'll be the dynamics group. We can open up the macros there. Things in dynamics, the basic compressor. There is an expander in here. We can take the compressor, duplicate it, hit the expander. Right. We may not necessarily want these on right away, so we'll turn those off. And I can map, you know, I can map ratios, I can map attacks, releases, threshold, that kind of stuff. Set these all to their default values. Rename this expander. Same deal. So I'll name, or I'll color the compressor light blue, and the expander green. That way I have a reference point of what I'm looking at. And then I'll what I'm doing here is, because of my specific settings when it comes to mapping macros, I have to take everything down, map it, and then if you hit delete, just resets everything to its original default value based on the default effect settings. So we got our dynamics here for a compressor and an expander. There's also a gate, kind of a gate effect we can throw in there as well if we want to do that. So really having some control over everything involving the dynamics of the frequencies and of the signal, really. Right, and turn everything off. So we're not going to need it right away. Hide the chain again, and hide dynamics. Okay, next thing is going to be EQ. Obviously, we're gonna want a low pass, a high pass filter, and all these bell curves. But the great thing is EQ8 has all 8 perfectly ready to go. Got your low shelf, your high shelf, and 6 bands to work with. By default, I have band 3 as a notch. And I also just learned recently that turning off what you don't need is a good thing. So we'll leave it at that. In fact, I'll do this. I made my change and I'm going to leave it that way. So I can right click and save as default preset, override it. Now every time I drag an EQ8 in, I only have my low and high pass. And I have it selected on the first one so I can bring up my high pass. Been itching to do that for a while. Keep forgetting to do it. Alright, so we got our EQ section, and in order to mimic this insert pre-effects or dynamics post EQ, it's really just as simple as dragging EQ before dynamics or insert effects in between, blah blah blah. But for now we're just going down the line of this chain. And then the last thing, obviously, in this channel strip is insert effects. And with this, it starts out blank. In fact, this is going to be, where we create our insert effects to shape the sound, add reverb, delay, that kind of stuff. Maybe even more compression if we need it after we EQ it, or whatever. But this is going to be where our insert effects are. We can leave the macros hidden because we're not going to use them immediately, and then we can have multiple parallel processing chains, all that good stuff in here in the insert effects, and be golden in that end. So, and I'd probably want to leave this open just like this. That way I can drop in whatever insert effects I want to drop in at any given time. Drop in a filter delay, and boom, there it is, right in my insert effects in my chain. So this is the basic channel structure of a channel strip. We can actually do that. We can just rename it. Instead of input effects, it'll just be channel strip. Alright. And then after the channel strip, we can have, we're going to need we already have the send effects, right? And then we do have pan, volume control, mute, solo. The one thing we don't have is width. Again, you can use utility for that, as it does have a width knob. So we can control the width there. There's a free plugin, at least I think it's free, called A1 Stereo Control. That's another option for width. It has this really nice stereo width with kind of a graphic display of just exactly where your width is showing in relation to your left and right stereo width. And mono, you can actually invert the phases of the input signal as well, which is something that this is what that invert phase is on my input gain. Then you have your input. You even have an input gain here before everything. You can mute the mids, the sides, set a frequency where it'll just remain mono below that frequency. and then everything else gets spread however you have the stereo width. So this is a cool little utility stereo control plugin. This will be my preference for this scenario, so I'll leave it at that. And I can go ahead and in stereo control, I've got all my parameters mapped on here, and I'll map the stereo width to a macro, as well as maybe some output gain. So I have a pan in here as well I can utilize, so I'll use that. And I think that's all I'll mess with. This is also an expert mode, which again, you know, expert shows the expert options. Easy mode's easy. That was easy. There's even some factory presets that you can have here too. Master stereo 115 safe bases. I've tried that. It's pretty decent actually. So we'll close the configuration, and here is our channel strip. Pretty much a mimic of Reason's channel strip. This is common on like desk mixing consoles. Everything has a channel strip. It's what, and every channel has each one, right? So having this is basically your default. Is probably good. Every time you open up a new channel, new audio track or a new MIDI track, this is what you have. So uh-oh. My stream is going bad. Sorry for the buffer. I don't know what's going on. I truly don't. Look at that. Yeah, that might help. Or get rid of Reason. Yeah, we'll just get rid of Reason. See if that changes anything. Oh, that made things better. Okay. So now that we have this, we can just we can even save this as a preset. Channel strip. Done. That way I always have it in case I don't, you know, I need to grab it real quick. Bam, done. And then duplicate this over to the MIDI. Now it's on the MIDI, and then just save default audio track, yes. Save as default MIDI track, yes. Now it will require me, now that I don't have an instrument, and then every time I want to play MIDI, I gotta throw an instrument in there. Then that means I gotta choose my instrument. It's not gonna play the same one over and over and over again. Which is fine. I can deal with that. Defaults. As far as default presets go, you can, like I was doing earlier with the EQ8, get to the EQ8 on, you can set certain parameters to your liking, how you want them face value as soon as you open them, and then right click and save as default preset. So like auto filter, it's always on a low pass. I could set it to a high pass, bring this frequency down, save that as the default preset. Now it would be a high pass every single time. Not that I really want to do that. Or if every time I want a flanger, I always bring in the flanger adjacent settings. I have a patch that says the JSON, but I could save that as my default preset. And roughly the same kind of width and time and feedback settings. And then all I gotta do is change dry wet. And then I can save this as my default preset every time I open a flanger. I hope my stream's working. Sorry if it's not. And you can do this for every effect that I'm aware of. Even multiband. Yep, save as default preset. Anytime you have this contextual menu with save as default preset, it's obvious you can do the obvious. So if there's like a certain setting that you like to set it all the time, however you like. Just wanted to keep that short and sweet, even though it was a half hour long. But yeah, hope I was able to kind of convey something. I'm fairly tired, so it's might have been a little slow this time. But yeah, hope you guys have a good night.